Gun-fu dual-wielding works well. Hong Kong action cinema in the 1980s and 1990s established the visual of a hero clearing rooms with a pistol in each hand, and that grammar migrated into American action franchises where dual pistols signal mastery. The image predates that era in pulp illustration and stunt exhibitions, but film formalized it through symmetrical framing, slow motion, and frequent cuts that imply unbroken accuracy. Audiences accept it because the camera lets both guns and the actor's eyes live in the same plane. Muzzle flashes fire in alternating rhythm, impacts always land in frame, and sound design stitches the sequence into continuous success. The choreography removes the moments where sights would be reacquired, or where one muzzle outruns the actor's ability to track it. Reality is plainer. A shooter can only align one sight picture at a time. The second pistol becomes a point-shooting tool with degraded precision, and the extra trigger doubles the opportunities for timing errors. Recoil recovery and follow-through are worse with a single-hand grip than a two-handed posture. On a range or in a fight, two occupied hands slow reloads, malfunction clears, and use of cover. Modern doctrine treats a second handgun as a reserve, not as a simultaneous primary. Historic exceptions existed when reloads were slow. Cap-and-ball revolver days favored multiple guns, but they were still fired one at a time to place hits. The trope persists because it reads instantly on camera and compresses geography. A realistic substitute is one pistol driven to eyeline with brisk cadence and fast magazine changes. If two pistols appear, the credible tactic is a transition to the second gun when the first runs dry, rather than firing both together. Unlimited ammo. Westerns often skipped reloads to keep riders in motion. 1980s gun ballets inherited that habit, and many modern blockbusters still cut around the moment a magazine empties. A countertrend, Heat, Collateral, John Wick, Extraction, brought reloads back into the language, but the older convention remains common. The screen favors momentum. Continuous gunfire avoids continuity headaches, keeps faces present, and preserves tempo. Editors can extend a volley simply by intercutting new angles, while loud, even bursts convince the ear that capacity isn't a constraint. Magazines are finite, slides lock to the rear when empty, and barrels heat quickly under long strings of automatic fire. Sustained automatic fire requires planned bursts, not minutes-long rakes of fire. In practice, trained users carry spare magazines and treat reloads as baked-in beats. Ignoring ammunition erases natural tension. Real planning apportions rounds to distance, cover, and expected contact. When the trope replaces that with an endless stream, characters never decide whether to reload now or later, which is where tactics and consequences enter. It remains popular because it simplifies staging and protects pace. A more credible approach uses the reload as choreography, an audible lockback, a clean magazine swap, a chambering stroke, and lets scarcity drive decisions. Films that do this earn credibility without slowing down, and the audience follows the story of resources as well as the story of movement. Bullets knock people off their feet. Wire rigs, squibs, and slow motion helped mid-century westerns teach a generation that a pistol hit carries cannon-like push. Later action cinema refined the look with bigger blood packs and longer flights. The shorthand now signals decisive hit before the audience has time to think. The effect lands because motion reads as force. A backward launch matches the sound's heavy thump, and a body moving in frame gives the viewer a clear cue: the shot mattered. The eye forgives the physics for the sake of legibility. Momentum transfer from a shoulder-fired weapon to a target is small. If a projectile could hurl an adult several feet, the equal and opposite impulse would also uproot the shooter, which standard recoil plainly does not. Real hits make people stumble, drop weight, sit down suddenly, or keep moving for a time depending on placement and physiology. Training focuses on shot placement and follow-up, not on the expectation of cinematic knockback.
Body armor may show a jolt, and surprise can cause a step back, but neither resembles the airborne flips familiar from film. Filmmakers keep the stunt because it telegraphs impact to a wide audience. A realistic alternative is a stumble, a faltering gait, or a delayed collapse, which preserves clarity without bending physics. Some recent productions favor this approach, letting the camera linger on the fight's consequences rather than the launch. Hip-firing long guns is accurate, too. Newsreels from the interwar period and doctrinal experiments with walking fire gave the public an early taste for hip-held machine guns. The 1980s cemented a different image. A single hero pinwheeling a rifle or light machine gun from the hip with the precision of a bench rest gun, often on full auto. It looks convincing because the face remains visible and the silhouette screams control. Blanks reduce recoil, edits hide misses, and impacts in the environment arrive on cue. The whole composition says power without the visual interruption of a stock at the cheek. Without a shoulder mount and sight picture, dispersion grows quickly. The muzzle tracks wherever the torso sways. Recoil lifts the bore between shots. Point shooting has a place at contact ranges, but even then it is a brief bridge to a sighted mount. In confined spaces, unshouldered rifles increase the risk of striking door frames, losing control of the muzzle, and wasting ammunition. Modern carbine training emphasizes a fast bring-up to the eye line, short controlled pairs, and immediate sight recovery. Automatic fire, when available, is used in short bursts to manage heat and maintain control. The cinematic version survives because it reads instantly and lets the audience see the actor's expression. A more faithful depiction shoulders the gun, shows quick optics flashes in close-ups, and treats hip-level fire as a last-ditch retention position measured in feet, not rooms.
One shot can cleanly cut a rope. Western hangings and adventure escapes taught the idea that a single bullet can sever a hanging rope on demand, often from a moving horse or at meaningful distance. Homages repeat the moment because it delivers tension and release in one beat. Editors make the stunt feel plausible with tight angles and a cut to a rope that parts cleanly. The gesture is simple and symbolic, a projectile as both judgment and rescue. On set, ropes are often prepared to fail, so the effect plays in a single cue. Bullets don't slice, they puncture. Twisted fibers distribute load and rebound after local damage. Even when a projectile passes through the center, many fibers remain intact, and under load, the rope may fray without parting. Larger calibers tear more material, but still don't guarantee a clean break. Attempting the trick near a person's neck introduces obvious risk. Motion, wind, and arc of movement magnify error at small targets. Historically, when time and tools existed, blades and axes did the work. When they didn't, multiple close shots at a taut section might weaken a rope enough for tension to finish it. The trope endures because it is compact and legible. A realistic version shows several deliberate shots at close range, visible fraying, then the weighted line giving way. Still dramatic, and far closer to how materials fail. Turning the gun sideways works. The sideways hold appeared occasionally in the 1960s, but early 1990s crime cinema and music videos turned it into a recognizable pose. Television picked it up as visual shorthand for swagger or inexperience. The camera likes it because it keeps the muzzle and eyes in the same plane for a tight shot. Audiences buy it because the posture reads as confident and dangerous. The image carried into other genres and back into the culture that inspired it, creating feedback between screen and street. Mechanical sights live on top of the slide. Rotating the pistol 90 degrees removes the intended sight picture and changes how recoil returns. With a full tilt, the muzzle tracks laterally rather than predictably up and down, which hurts consistency from shot to shot. Professional training uses an upright two-handed grip for control and a brief extension to the eye line for sight confirmation. Small cants appear in specific contexts, aligning a dominant eye or peeking around a shield, but they are fractional, purpose-driven, and usually at close range, not a permanent, stylized tilt.
Directors continue to use the pose because it is readable. A credible correction keeps the pistol upright, lets the audience see a flash of front sight, and saves the exaggerated cant for a brief, justified moment if a shield or corner demands it.
Exploding impacts and huge muzzle fireballs. Squibs and pyrotechnics made mid-century gunfights feel bigger. Later, digital muzzle flashes and composite sparks allowed impact effects to be dialed up further, divorcing visuals from the constraints of real propellants and flash suppressants. Vehicles erupt, walls shower sparks, and pistols produce foot-long fire cones. The combination works because it has rhythm. A bright flash, a hard report, and an immediate visible reaction tell the story cleanly. Viewers have also been trained by explosion-heavy action cinema to expect fire whenever metal is struck. A bullet is not an explosive. It carries kinetic energy that penetrates and deforms tissue or material but does not detonate. Gasoline requires the right vapor-air mixture and an ignition source. Holes alone don't do it. Many service loads use low-flash powder, and muzzle devices redirect or reduce visible flame. Tactical users care about signature. Large flashes destroy night vision, identify the shooter, and lengthen recovery between shots. Realistic hits often yield dust, splinters, or spall rather than fireworks. The tradition persists because it helps editors and it reads at a glance. When productions aim for fidelity, they use brief flashes, correct ejection rhythm, and believable debris. The scene remains kinetic without confusing bullets for demolition charges. Fully automatic weapons are easy to acquire. Montage sequences since the 1980s often show characters collecting exotic guns in minutes, with no friction between desire and possession. The same scenes usually imply that long, raking bursts are not only available but accurate, which ties spray to competence. It is tidy storytelling. Gearing up without bureaucracy keeps a thriller moving, and continuous roar on the soundtrack sells menace. Visual similarity between semi-automatic rifles and their select fire relatives helps the shortcut pass on screen. In civilian life, genuine machine guns are tightly regulated and rare. Select fire weapons in professional hands are used in short bursts to balance heat and control. Small, light platforms become difficult to keep on target in continuous fire, and ammunition consumption is immediate. Training doctrine treats automatic fire as a role tool, not a default. Carbines predominantly run in semi-auto for precision, with burst or auto reserved for suppression and specific tasks. Most jurisdictions add layers of restriction or outright prohibition beyond federal frameworks. The trip persists because it helps compress complexity. A credible substitute shows semi-auto cadence with frequent reloads, and where select fire appears, disciplined bursts with realistic muzzle movement and heat considerations. The visual still reads as powerful without suggesting that anyone can walk into a shop and leave with belt-fed capability.
Firing without aiming is nearly as good as using sights. Quick-draw westerns established point shooting as a romantic ideal. Mid-century training materials for close-quarters work leaned into instinctive fire at arm's length. Modern action owes both strands for its habit of showing accurate hits from the hip, over the shoulder, or while moving without a clear sight picture.
The style stays popular because it keeps faces visible and makes the shooter look effortless. Sound and editing imply precision even when the muzzle never aligns with an eye line.
The effect is economical. Less time spent showing sights means more time spent moving the story. Hit probability drops steeply without sight confirmation beyond very short distances. Index shooting can place a fast first round at contact range. Follow-up shots benefit immediately from even a flash sight picture or a simple dot. Unsupported positions increase arc of movement and widen dispersion. On a square range or in close environments, retention positions exist for weapon protection in grappling distance, but they are bridges, not destinations. Current instruction commonly teaches a rapid presentation to eye level with controlled cadence. Safety considerations, accountability for every round, push in the same direction. Filmmakers can keep pace and face time while showing a brief rise to sights between shots. The action does not slow, it simply reflects how hits are actually made. Guns have no recoil. Early blank technology already reduced on-camera movement compared to live ammunition. Today, many productions rely on airsoft or CO2 props with digital effects, or even inert replicas with fully synthetic muzzle flash and ejection. Some actors train hard and run a pistol very flat, which adds to the illusion that recoil disappears. The image convinces because edits trim away the tiny interval where the muzzle lifts and returns. A designed soundscape gives the impression of violence while the frame stays calm enough to read an expression. When a slide animation is added in post, the viewer's brain accepts the whole as authentic. Recoil is the visible face of momentum and gas venting. Even with mild ammunition, sights lift and must return. With true blanks, cycling often requires restrictors or tuned parts. With inert props, there is no cycling impulse at all, and performers must act the motion. Instruction aims for consistent grip and stance, so recovery is fast and repeatable, not absent. Split times reflect that cycle. Press, lift, return, press. In rifles, devices and gas systems help manage movement, but they don't erode physics. The screen language persists because it keeps faces clear and sets safe. A more faithful approach keeps the same cutting rhythm but shows slight lift and return, real ejection cadence, and realistic timing between shots. The result looks better to trained eyes while remaining legible to the general audience. Thanks for watching. If you found this video interesting or entertaining, feel free to give it a like or share it with others who'd enjoy it too. And if there's a topic you'd like explored next, leave your ideas in the comments. We read every single one of them. See you in the next one.